You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to another third year bonus of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy, Ryan Singer. Thanks for watching or listening to the program today. We are coming to you. This episode is being recorded at the Watering Hole on the astral plane, the new studio space that I'm sharing with my buddy Kyle Ayers. Check out the pod. Never seen it. What a good podcast. I was going to say, if you like movies, like everyone alive doesn't like movies. So, what are we going to talk about this week on the third year bonus? Well, there's a bunch of things. I remembered to bring the book. As you can see here, the Serious Mystery. You can see a ton of bookmarks and things I've got in this book. This is a book written by Robert K.G. Temple. Was Earth visited by intelligent beings from a planet in the system of the star Sirius? The Sirius star system, I guess, is another way of saying that. Wow, this book is dense. I have been reading this book for quite a while as I prepare to go to Mount Shasta and sift through and edit together the evidence of The Bridge, which is the paranormal documentary series that I've been making, centered around when I went and filmed a stand-up comedy special, The Supernatural, at Poasttown Elementary School in October 2021. So that special is out now. You could go to YouTube. If you just type in Ryan Singer, it should show up. If you type in Ryan Singer comedy special, it will 100% show up. Probably one of the first things that shows up if you do that search. Or if you do Ryan Singer Supernatural, it should be number one. Depending on how many times you're, YouTubing clips from the long running TV show Supernatural or the Supernatural. What was it called? Supernatural or can you believe I still have not watched one episode of it. Very attractive men solving supernatural mysteries. I'm not opposed to that as a premise for a television program, for the record. It sounds like a show I'd probably be into. I mean, we know about my love for Henry Cavill. I am not afraid of a handsome man. I like handsome men on my television. They don't have to be handsome. Anyway, so there's some other updates. Oh, so I got to tell you this story. So I'm taking a hike, literally, not figuratively. I'm taking a hike last week. It is probably the hottest day it's been in Los Angeles in quite a while when I'm on the mountain. I've been trying to really kickstart my hiking for the last month or so in anticipation of going and making a Mount Shasta trip, because I do want to explore the mountain when we're up there, and I didn't want to be totally out of mountain shape when we're doing so. Like, we go like 10 feet, and I'm like, hey, we got to take a break because I can't. Where's my vape pen? So I haven't been smoking. I haven't vaped in almost 10 months now. I've been nicotine free for almost 10 months. I'm very glad about that. So I've been going to like the YMCA because I'm an old guy. I knew I was an old guy, a middle-aged guy, when I was naked in the locker room at the YMCA, being like, where'd I put my shoes? I didn't yell that out loud, but when you're showering at the YMCA, you've officially entered, you're a man, you're a man now, I guess. Anyway, so I'm hiking, and it's a really hot day. I'm a little exhausted. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm trying to stay hydrated. I've got one of those Camelback backpacks that has water in it. And so I got my Camelback back there. And all of a sudden, and there's birds flying around. There's all kinds of crows and everything flying around out there. Hawks, it's the mountain. It's nature. These things are going to be out there, right? So I'm out there, and all of a sudden, when a bird buzzes the tower, gives you the whoosh, the swoop whoosh, the whoosh, whoosh, right? And you hear that noise because something flew very close to your face. Well, I experienced, and those watching, and you can watch the videos of these on YouTube now. I'll be putting up video of every episode, give or take, depending on time restraints for editing and whatever. Nonetheless, all of the episodes have been on available on YouTube for a while, even if they're just audio only. So you can check that out if that's how you like to listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube. Anyway, so I get swooped, dude. I get like seriously swooped, like right. And let me move this back. I feel like my stubble keeps, I'm like a Velcro effect on the microphone, and it like startled me. I've got my headphones in, but I don't think there was any music playing because I'll lose signal up there, and so then it's nice just to experience nature's sounds while you're hiking. So I'm just experiencing the sounds of nature. I get like it came right at me from 12 o'clock, boom, 12 to 6 o'clock. And then I jump back, it startles me. I think there's only maybe like two or three other people on the mountain because it's so hot out and it's like 2:30 in the afternoon. And everybody else is like, what are you doing? Because there's no shade out there. It's just direct sun. And I love that because I'm a lizard. So I look around and there's nothing. There's no bird. There is no sign of any bird or flying object or flying creature of any kind. Where at first it didn't register. And then I'm looking around and there's people behind me, but they're far enough back to where they wouldn't have seen what happened. They wouldn't understand if I was like, "Hey, did you see a bird?" And they'd be like, "We're outside. There's always birds flying around everywhere out here. Not a bird in the sky." It was so weird. Not a bird in the sky. And I start like looking over the edges of each side of the trail, like of the mountain, like there's got to be a bird flying somewhere. No bird anywhere. Something swooped me in broad daylight. Now, could it have been a bird? Yes, it could have been a bird of some kind. Could have been a crow, could have been a hawk. It got to be a hawk. Me and hawks, we've been good the whole time. Me and crows, we had a situation a few years back, but we're good now. So maybe somebody was having fun with me. Maybe, maybe it was a bird, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe there was something there. Like it was one of those moments where you could just brush it off and you could almost forget about it, which I almost did. But I think I made a mental note to remember this moment because I'm a big proponent of paranormal activity during the daytime. And not because I'm a scaredy cat of when the lights go out, but are we not all scaredy cats when the lights go out? Paranormal investigations in the dark are amazing. They're incredible. They're really fun. Nighttime investigations, we've covered this on the show during countless interviews and things like that. You have less outside noise that you're dealing with because you're not dealing with the hustle and bustle of the 9 to 5 workday or the regular working hours of businesses that are usually open till 9 p.m. or depending on your town. If you're in a one horse town, everything shuts down at like 7 or 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. But even in cities like Los Angeles, the 24-hour diner has gone the way of the dinosaur out here. There's a handful of 24-hour diners still in the city. I used to have two or three of them within a 5-minute drive of my old apartment where I lived in Glendale by Burbank, and I loved it because I'm a diner guy. Diner Dan Diner Dan, we don't need you jumping in right now, but let's talk about the increase in prices at diners. We don't have to talk about that, Diner Dan. Inflation has happened. 3 eggs and a couple pieces of toast with a side of bacon has increased. The price has gone up. But I just want a cup of coffee and I want some sausages and I want some eggs scrambled at 2 in the morning and I don't want to pay $20. I get it. I went to Denny's the other night down at Dan because there's a Denny's like a block from here. It's everything you could ask for, right? Having a diner, a 24-hour Denny's that close to your office, which is also 24 hours, so I can come here whenever. And So I was like, I got to try this Denny's out. And I go to the Denny's and it was great. I got a fit slam because I was like, it's like after midnight. I probably shouldn't throw like a Reuben in my stomach right now, right? I'm trying to be more fit for my mountain adventure in Mount Shasta. I don't need to be just throwing a Reuben bomb in the gut at, post midnight, like throwing a gremlin in a pool after midnight or a mogwai in the pool after midnight. So I go there and it's delicious. It's great. The Diet Coke on tap was très magnifique. Nonetheless, I do let myself have a Diet Coke, you know, from the tap every once in a while. From the just leave the gun at the bar. It's one of those days. Anyway, so it was great. I mean, I was out the door for $24. I mean, did I get an extra side of turkey bacon? Yes. Did I get a Diet Coke? And people are charging like $4 for a soda anymore at a restaurant. It's crazy. But it costs like 17 cents to have like two refills. That's like total cost for soda cost. I mean, they're just ripping us off on these. You know, none of us need to be drinking soda. Now there is coffee that we can drink. So it was great. 24-hour diner. It's a Denny's. You know what you're getting at a Denny's. I'm out the door for $24 because I tip at least 20%, right? And it's just like, that's crazy. Cause before the pandemic, there was this place called Harry's. I could be out the door for like $14. And that's with like a 25% tip. Anyway, what was I even talking about? I was talking about diners, talking about Los Angeles, Burbank. Because I was in Glendale hiking at this park called Brant Park when the swoop happened. And I loved it. Oh, daytime. Yeah, because the daytime hours, there's a lot more action going on during the day. So it can be more difficult to discern if you're actually getting paranormal activity as opposed to just activity, right? Now, if we were in a vacuum, if I was hiking in a vacuum where there was no flying creatures, and we knew that there were no birds in this area for some whatever reason, like maybe birds had a holiday and they took the, you know, maybe birds one day a year, birds, they, what's it called when you honor a holiday or oh shit, I can't believe I can't remember the word. Anyway, they observe a holiday. It's like they have a no fly holiday, right? That all birds observe one day a year. And so I'm hiking that day and the swoop happens and we would be like, well, there's no birds because they're all observing the no fly day. But then you could be like, well, was there one bird who's kind of an atheist bird and doesn't believe in the no fly day? We don't have to get into that whole conspiracy theory about the one bird and trying to make everybody think that no birds fly, but then there's something weird happening because he's actually flying. We don't need to get into that. On this made up holiday for birds where they don't fly that they all observe. I love a good daytime paranormal happening because in some respects it's less expected, right? And in many respects, it's less expected. I mean, if you saw a full body apparition at 2 o'clock in the afternoon walking down to the 24-hour diners because you realize that the Denny's is good for lunch too. Doesn't have to be 1 in the morning to go get an omelet. You're like, hey, maybe I want I can't think of what's that fucking sandwich called. It's like a Frisco melt. Well, I need more coffee. So you want a Frisco melt at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you walk from your office down to the Denny's where you're starting to get to know everybody a little too fast because you've been going there too much. Okay, let's just this is hypothetical, right? And then Diner Dan, you're meeting Diner Dan there. I love going to Denny's any time of day. Is it a diner for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for the in-betweens, for brunch, for dinner, for overnight refueling? Okay, we get it, Diner Dan. Yeah, but you just never know because the coffee's always good there. I know. Coffee's always tastes better at diners. That's true, Diner Dan. Double D wouldn't lay it down. Nonetheless, you see something at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I think that was part of like the Chicago Mothman things that were going on. My buddies over at the Boogie Monster podcast, Dave and Kyle, uh, you know, were doing a bunch of stuff on the Chicago Mothman, and it was daytime stuff, right? It was daytime sightings. Dave Stone and I were in Point Pleasant last year when we did a mini tour together, and we went to some of the sites during the daytime, and I did get startled at one point because a woodland creature kind of appeared out of nowhere, but it was just a normal woodland creature that we're used to seeing. But you see something during the day. You see like a Sasquatch. You see a full body apparition. If you see a full body apparition on your way to Denny's at 2 o'clock to go get a Frisco melt, this is God. I wish I could have just got that out clean 5 minutes ago. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to Denny's to get a Frisco melt. Next thing you know, you see a full body apparition. You know it's a full body apparition because it's a dead person that you know, right? It's not like oh, it could have just been someone who looked weird. You had something in your eye. Maybe you were tearing up thinking about the last Frisco melt you had and how enjoyable it was. And now you're so excited to get your next Frisco melt that you're emotional about it. So there's a little bit of teary eyed happening. So you're a little bit blurry because you're 46 and your vision's going a little bit. So you're not sure, like, was that a person or was that a ghost? Was that an apparition? I couldn't really tell because my eyes had a layer of water covering them. Now, that situation aside, it's someone you know. It's someone you know who is dead, who is past the physical form. They are no longer in the physical form. This is after physical, right? The post material world, right, that they're living in, at least in our understanding of material. I think consciousness is also material, even though it can be considered immaterial. Nonetheless, we can talk about that later. The coffee's kicking in. It's one of those Nespresso pots. Oh yeah, put me in the escape pod, baby. I mean, that's what it's like. Like escape your tiredness in an espresso pod. Drink more. That's a good idea. Make sure everyone can hear you drinking it, though. That's people love that. If you saw a full body apparition at 2 o'clock in the afternoon walking to Denny's to get a Frisco melt, and it was your grandfather on your mother's side, and you know it was him because he's your grandfather, and you can recognize your grandfather. And then he just kind of stops and looks at you and smiles and then dissipates into the sunlight on the kind of dirty and a little bit dingy, but fucking charming sidewalks of North Hollywood, California. You'd probably shit your pants. And which is kind of like a preemptive Frisco melt move to like do that before you eat a Frisco melt, which by the way, the level, if you were talking about a grease factor, the the Frisco melt is probably, I don't know, on the Lichter scale, I would say it's probably a 7.5. I mean, you don't get much greasier than that. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head that's greasier than a Frisco melt from Denny's is that pizza that has the pepperoni bowls, and the pepperoni bowls that just hold grease. It's like pepperonis eat grease for breakfast. Like they just become a bowl that holds grease. It's one of the most disgusting, but yet a delicious phenomena is the pepperoni bowls on a pizza. As if you eat pepperoni. And if you don't eat pepperoni, I apologize. But they can even do that with fake pepperoni now. Nonetheless, grease is just melted like fat. We don't have to get into it. Nonetheless, you'd you'd make a messy mess in your new jogging shorts, right? And there's no way to hide it. If you make a mess in your jogging shorts, that's the problem with jogging shorts. There's just no way to hide it, right? You accidentally, you know, you had some merchandise fall off the back of the truck when you're wearing jogging shorts. There's just really nothing you can do to hide it. You just have to like put up some cones and be like, "I'm sorry, everybody. This is ruining my day, and it's totally inconveniencing your day. Please put your phones away." Can we take a break? Let's take a break here and drop in some commercials because I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. And by break, I mean we're going to pause, for about 3 seconds in all actuality. Um, for those who are on patreon.com/Ryan Singer, you can pay $3 a month and you get no commercials. You don't have to deal with commercials. So jump over there and don't forget to, like and share and rate and review the podcast. That'd be great. Wherever you listen. I'd appreciate that. And we're back. So We're back and we're talking about Denny's and we're talking about diners and we're talking about full body apparitions during the daytime. I was swooped by what I can only describe as an invisible winged creature on a hike recently. What was the point of me even talking about that? I'm actually now remembering why I wanted to discuss that. I wanted to discuss it because this daytime spontaneous paranormal experience, spontaneous paranormal experiences, SPEs, I believe they're called, are some of the most profound and interesting paranormal experiences that we can have. They oftentimes will, especially during the daytime, it is like an extra layer of unexpectedness when they happen during the daytime. But these SPEs oftentimes can be the thing that cements a belief in the supernatural or the paranormal or the mystical, etc. These spontaneous events that rattle us, that knock us off of our everyday rocker, and they make us reconsider what we were doing in the moment, what we're doing in general in our lives, and more importantly, they bring into focus a new viewpoint, a new way of looking at the reality of the universe around us. And many of us who are listening to the show have had these experiences probably multiple times, potentially, because once you have one and then open yourself to it, the chances are you are going to experience another one. I've never seen a full body apparition. That is on my grocery list, on my paranormal grocery list. I got to tell you, seeing a paranormal full body or seeing a full body apparition, especially during the daytime, would knock me off my rocker all over again. And that's the beautiful thing about paranormal experiences is that it doesn't matter how many times you experience something, you can continually be knocked off your rocker by these profound experiences that remind us, because sometimes we get caught up, right? And it's not that we forget about how magical and unknown and mysterious and beautiful and weird, but really cool our actual reality is. But sometimes we get caught up in other things, right? And of the material world and things that maybe aren't as important as we tend to think they might be in the moment. And they jolt us back, they get us back on track, right? And I have these moments all the time. I had a moment today where I was just like, oh man, um, like getting caught up and trying to, get the career just chugging along it again after, 3 years, the pandemic and everything else, and then moving and then trying to get back settled in and scheduling a bunch of tour dates again and getting the podcast back to twice a week and now having an office space. I'm like, oh, I'm all caught up in the everyday, right? I got to be writing every day. And I'd fallen off my writing habits. And then I just remembered, like, oh man, like, none of it matters. Isn't that isn't that really cool? Isn't that beautiful? How none of it really matters. And it was refreshing to remember that, it doesn't none of it really matters. And I love that. I love that it doesn't matter. It's important to me, many of these things, but it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Are we trying to live a life? Are we trying to experience life? Or are we trying to accumulate excess? Are we trying to be famous for the sake of being famous? People don't even know who Paul McCartney is. What chance does anyone have of ever being remembered? So, I mean, if the Beatles can't be remembered, even when they're still alive, it wasn't that long ago that they were the most famous people in the world. Um, sure, everyone's heard the name Elvis, but how many people will close their eyes and think of an Elvis impersonator when they hear the name Elvis? And how many young people? I don't even know. I don't talk to young, like, you know, 19-year-olds, like, or, what do you think about Elvis? I'm not going around the streets being like, man on the streets, like, tell me your thoughts on Elvis, whatever generation young people are. It doesn't matter. Um, so it doesn't like. So what are we doing? What are we doing here? What's the point? What's the purpose? And does there have to be? Does there have to be a purpose? And does there have to be a point? And that's when we start to remember, like, oh yeah, none of this matters. Isn't that beautiful? So life is always better though when we try to be nicer and be better. So that's the trick, is leaning into that. But part of the beauty of life is not knowing anything. And when it comes to the paranormal, I mean, there's, you know, everybody I've talked to in the world of the paranormal, to a person, and now granted, I haven't talked to everybody in the world of the paranormal or all these, quote unquote paranormal celebrities or whatever else. But to the people I have spoken to and to the people um, I haven't spoken to, I would venture to guess it's probably the same with most, if not all of them. But to a person, they will tell you that there's no such thing as an expert in the paranormal. Now, production companies and networks and all these people who are trying to make paranormal TV shows, and they're presenting you all of these are the people they're presenting as experts. And these people will tell you there's no such thing as an expert. But for whatever reason, these idiotic production companies, like, people won't watch unless they think it's an expert. It's like, you're building some fake narrative that doesn't need to exist, that people aren't demanding. BT dubs, they aren't even requiring that. They just want engaging, entertaining television. Sometimes they want it to be informative. Sometimes, mostly they just want it to be entertaining because they had a long day at work. They work 50, 60 hours a week. They just want to unplug. I've got friends who are like, oh, it's just my turn my brain off show that I watch. That's why I watch The Bachelor or Love is Blind. I just got to turn my brain off. It's like there's other ways to turn your brain off. You're watching whatever. I had like multiple friends at lunch hard sell me on trying to watch Love is Blind. I had seen the first season or most of it just because um, who I was living with at the time was watching it. And so by default I'm watching it. Um, but I don't have any interest in seeking a show like that out or enjoy watching it. Um, well, that's how I turn my brain off. Well, okay. I turn my brain off by going to the mountain, taking a hike, or I was going to say reading a book. I turn my brain off by trying to learn. Anyway, I don't begrudge you if you watch Love Is Blind. I mean, you're more than willing to do that, or you're more than willing to do that. Obviously, you're willing to do it because you're watching it, but you're allowed. Who gives a shit what anybody thinks about what television that we enjoy? As long as it's not Faces of Death, I do think that's problematic. But if you enjoy watching people truly be murdered or truly die, you might want to look inside yourself and wonder why the obsession with real morbidity, and why does that exist? Is that the only thing that can make you feel alive is by seeing someone else die? Yeah, sounds like you might be ready to kill some people just to try to feel. Is that how serial killers? Or there's that thing about stealing the breath. I saw that in a movie. It's probably not even true. But uh, oh, what is it that has the oh, dreams, sleep, Sandman? Got there. Sandman on Netflix. Oh, what a good series. Anyway, there's some interesting storylines in there that kind of tie into this, what we're just talking about. I don't want to spoil any of it, so I'm not going to say any more. Um, what we were talking about was trying to feel alive, right? And how there's really no point to being alive other than experiencing life itself. You hear this kind of come up with, I don't know, it's a theme that kind of comes up in the psychedelic world as well. It's like, we are nothing, we are consciousness experiencing itself in physical form. And That's all we are. We're a manifestation of the universe's intelligence trying to, experience itself, like almost as if we are a mirror being held up by the cosmic consciousness itself, so it can kind of just peer into its own eyes and try to have some kind of temporal or physical experience of just existence in many different types of ways. And that is an interesting thought. But then there's also this idea that there could be purpose, and there could be meaning in life, and it doesn't have to be meaningless. And I don't want you to get the idea that I'm over here thinking that it's life is meaningless. I do think there's great meaning to be found every day, depending on what it is you really love or really enjoy, and what it is that you do. And there can be meaning in your work, and you can find bliss and joy in doing things like that. I find myself finding meaning, when I write, when I perform stand up comedy, when I'm doing the podcast, when I'm, just having fun making up goofs with characters, hanging out with friends, going to diners, researching the paranormal, trying to make connections. And something that keeps coming up in, or has come up in the bridge, is trying to connect everything. And it's almost as if it was a directive, connect all of these things. And I've always really enjoyed trying to find the connections between all paranormal phenomena. And I think consciousness is one of the things that, I talk about this all the time, is the connective tissue, right? And so, how do we use consciousness or understand it better to be able to make these connections, to better understand what it is we're trying to figure out? And if that's alien intelligence, or the purpose of alien communication, what is the purpose of alien communication? Is it simply introducing yourselves to your neighbors in the intergalactic neighborhood? Or is there a greater purpose there? Or are we just so driven by like this, purpose driven life idea, that we think that there must be a purpose and there must be a reason for it? So we ascribe and we attach great I was going to say profundity, and then I started saying profound, so I said profound purpose. We're attaching it when it doesn't need to be attached, almost like those baggage cases people put on top of their cars when they go on trips. So you could have put everything in the trunk, maybe. But hey, the rack looks good. Are we adding meaning when there is no meaning to be added? I don't know. I'd love to know that answer. Searching for answers. Is that a meaningful life? It seems like it is in many ways. The curious nature of the human creature provides meaning, because we go down these quests or these rabbit holes, and we go on quests trying to make the connections between things that seemingly might not be connected. And we might not even realize it until much later. That's the beautiful thing about paranormal investigations. I truly believe that the universe starts your paranormal investigation before you even know you've started. It starts giving you information in a nonlinear fashion that will pertain to some of the questions you'll be asking later. And you don't realize that you've already been given clues, hints, and even outright answers beforehand. And once you put it out there, it just decides who else is going to be involved. And oftentimes, other people you might not have even met yet are involved in your investigation before you even started it and before you've even met them. That's what we're dealing with the bridge when it comes to, my friendship I've developed with Matthew Jackson, There's and also with Eric Connor, there's situations that we've discussed, and it's difficult to truly and really is the word I just the words I combine there. It's difficult to truly. I like that word. It's 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 truly difficult. Truly and really, it's truly difficult to try to explain this so far in the editing and the production process of the documentary of the bridge of the series, because I haven't wrapped my brain around it all the way yet, and I haven't figured out the best way to present it. But it'll probably be in season two. There is going to be a season two. That's why I'm going to Mount Shasta. But um, I'm almost done with episode 4. There will be 5 episodes in season 1, or the volume 1, or whatever I'm going to call it. But um, Mount Shasta will be the beginning, if not all, volume 2, and we'll see. Um, it doesn't matter uh, how many episodes there are. There's no rules. So, but looking for answers and understanding that they started coming before I even knew I had begun, and they were coming potentially to other people that I hadn't even met yet. It's just mind blowing. And and then when you dig into a book like this, which by the way, I've been reading this book for way too long. This is probably the one of the longest books I've not one of the longest books, because it's not one of the biggest books in the world, but it's probably taken me longer to read this book than almost any other book. But if you can see, I just want to show people on camera here. Can you see how tiny those words are? Can you see that? They're just so tiny. I think this book is solely responsible for me now needing reading glasses. I have not completed the book yet, but because see, I read like the entire, what's it called? The index or whatever it's called, where they put all the notes. There's extensive notes in like the back end of the book. Um, that took me like a week and a half to read, let alone and then go back to the point of the book where I had to go. You get it. But I do want to touch on something from the book. I've got a ton of bookmarks here, but there's some really. The next chapter is the Hounds of Hell, by the way. Um, so that's coming up. I'll probably read that maybe tonight if I've got it in me. Um, I want to get into something here that is, um, that pertains directly. I feel like almost kind of like I'm doing a book draw right now. Oh yeah, it's the appendix. I got my answer right there. That's what it was. Uh, this is interesting because Temple talks about something I didn't understand, and that's Neoplatonists or Neoplatonists, or however you pronounce it. The people from the Platonic schools who are after Plato's death. I'll just read from page 104. As I explained fully in Appendix 1, the Neoplatonists are so thoroughly despised through the bias of the moment, however one cares to define that bias, that the Trismegistic literature, and by the way, if you've listened to the show, or maybe you're new to it, but Hermes Trismegistus, I haven't said his name or their name in so long, but oh God, I mean, now we're getting into my jam here. We're talking about hermetics, hermeticism. I mean, Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah. Thrice great Hermes is what it stands for. Anyway, so that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the Trismegistic literature suffers with Neoplatonism under the onus of being considered too far removed from reality and logic and being inclined towards the mystical. And this is what, I mean, I just kind of got lucky here. I mean, I made a bookmark here, but I didn't know I was going to read this particular passage. But this is what we're talking about, like the material versus the immaterial, the meaning versus the meaningless, and so many of us uh, throughout this life, we find ourselves very anchored and tethered to the material world, and through that, and being able to uh, and 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 like I said, I don't begrudge these people. And I have friends who are like this, who are just hardcore. Maybe we'll call them skeptics. But skeptic is specifically referring to like paranormal, mystical, supernatural skeptics. It could be religious, skeptical, and all that. And you could be skeptical of so many different things. But in this world, we're talking about paranormal specifically. So the people who are not inclined to believe anything paranormal is real, that it could be all woo woo or made up or fairy tale or folklore, etc. But many people find themselves anchored and tethered with a very tight grip to the material world, and in that material world, using, and relying on the scientific method and what I can see is real and what I can touch is real, and whatever people need, whatever system is, and whatever viewpoints and belief systems are helping people navigate their way through this existence, I think is great. It's fine, and they're allowed. Just like the same way I'm allowed. I need something that's more up in the clouds, up and floating around in space, to navigate my way through this existence, which can be painful and can be brutal and can be cold and can be dark, and we find ourselves listless at times or without hope. How do we navigate through those murky waters? And for me, it is the paranormal, the mystical, the supernatural, the whimsical. Specifically, the whimsical is a big one for me. And that's what helps me get through. Is it a coping mechanism or is it a way of life? It's a worldview, it's a point of view about my interactions and how I synthesize in the world around me. Other people are the opposite of me, and they need that anchor in the material, right? And whether that's the scientific method or just the viewpoint of like being an atheist, and there is no woo woo, there is no God, there is nothing magical happening in the world, et cetera, et cetera. If that's how they're navigating through the world, and if that's what they need to get through, to be able to process it. And I mean, because listen, if none of us had a system, right? If none of us had a belief structure or some kind of mechanism that we filtered just experience through, especially the bad stuff, we'd all just go batshit crazy, right? We'd all just be walking around like, what is anything? Why does anything? Nothing is nothing, and everything is nothing, and everything is nothing, and nothing is everything. You, it would be chaos, right? So thank God there's variety in systems. And thank God there's variety in viewpoints and worldviews and filters and lenses, right? It adds variety to life and to people. Um, it's when it becomes dogmatic that it becomes problematic. I don't know. Do I need to throw another commercial in right now? Am I going to go longer than an hour? Maybe I do. Maybe I do need to throw another commercial in right here just in case. Maybe there's not a commercial here. Maybe there is. I don't know right now because I really don't know how much longer I'm going to keep talking. Um, I hope you're enjoying this. We're going to get back to the book here. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Be a patron. $3 a month. I mean, it would help me. It helped me pay for this. It helped me pay for the watering hole in the astral plane because now I rent office space. So I'm investing in the podcast to get bigger and better moving forward. I mean, it only took me 9.5 years to invest in the podcast. So um, here we are, and we'll be right back. And we're back. So let me start this over because I went on a tangent here about worldviews and what we need to be anchored to, et cetera, et cetera. Temple writes, as I fully explained in Appendix 1, the Neoplatonists are so thoroughly despised through the bias of the moment, however one cares to define that bias, that the Trismegistic literature suffers with Neoplatonism under the onus of being considered too far removed from reality and logic and being inclined towards the mystical. This does not fit well with the hard rationalism of an age still bound by the, parenthetically, albeit decaying, fetters of 19th century scientific deterministic prejudice. The sublime irony is, of course, that proven and authentic Egyptian texts are obviously mystical, but that is considered all right. However, as long as there is a belief that the Trismegistic literature is Neoplatonic, it will be despised because it is mystical. The Trismegistic literature may not be Neoplatonic, but that does not make what it has to say about Egyptian religion any less valid, per se, than the Isis and Osiris by the Greek Plutarch, who also slightly earlier in the time, or who was only slightly earlier in time than the Neoplatonist Greeks. It is time for scholars to pay some attention to this sadly neglected material. Much of the Trismegistic literature probably goes back to genuine sources or compilations such as Manetho's Lost Sothis. Okay, so we're getting into, like, we're going to start talking about papyrus, and we're going to start talking about ancient texts, et cetera, et cetera. Now, basically, the gist here, if you're wondering what the hell did you just read to me, was that there are Trismegistic writings that are attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. Why am I having a hard time saying his name? Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus? Hermes Tris- Trismegistus. I can say Trismegistic, no problem. But when I start, I start to say, when I try to say Hermes Trismegistus, I can't fucking say it. Dude, I can't say it today. Oh, I can't fucking say Hermes Trismegistus. Oh, fuck. Sorry for the language. I'm not sorry. That's how I talk. Hermes Trismegistus. Holy shit, dude. Oh, Hermes be damned. I mean, I can't even get the name out. Nonetheless, this literature is considered to be bullshit, right? For some reason, the Neoplatonists have a stink on them, uh, because they're too far removed, after the death, and but it turns out, and there, it has something to do with, like, some guy who was like, wanted some translations done, and this person wanted some translations done, and they had an agenda. If I'm remembering this correctly, there's an agenda in the translations, and they don't think the translations were all that great, or they were translating them to try to benefit from them in some way, and the Trismegistic literature got lumped into there. Like, this is all bullshit because that guy did it. This guy was in charge of ordering the translations, so it's all bullshit because that guy was kind of a bullshit guy, right? Meanwhile, I mean, I've had this experience. I remember years ago when I first started getting into Hermes Trismegistus, and I kind of got at that time. And I was talking about, some of the writings that I don't think specifically, I think actually kind of, I mean, they allude to them here too as well, but the that are referenced here as kind of being bogus, or, having that stink and that bias on them. There's, you know, people were like, that wasn't written. That was attributed. That can be attributed to blah 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 blah, and so and so and so and so. And this is where a lot of that comes from. And these are murky waters when it comes to trying to identify who truly wrote something hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? And I'm not over here sitting like I know it, and I know Hermes Trismegistus was the one who wrote this, and that Hermes Trismegistus was even a person, or, an alien sent here to bestow knowledge upon us all. Now, which is an interesting topic because I'm starting to get into the Aetherius Society, and by get into, I mean trying to learn more about it. And they have a headquarters on Hollywood and Vine, or Sunset and Vine. I'm going to go down there. Um, I got a book, Dr. George King. It's a rabbit hole I'm getting ready to go down after I do the Wim Hof book. So anyway, the point is, a lot of people think it's all bullshit, but what I find very fascinating is the Hermetic principles, that are very, very, very old and seemingly become more and more valid the older they get. And it's just really, really cool stuff. And we're going to go back into that at some point because I do think, and whether it's talking with Jessica and Oscar about, you know, breaking away from needing like mainstream scientific validation for the paranormal, which is a conversation that comes up a lot. And this part of the conversation always comes up since I've, met them and had conversations with Jessica and Oscar. And you can go back and listen to those interviews. That Oscar was telling me that there's something much older. We don't need to find a new system to, rely on. That there's a much older system that we just need to knock the dust off. And my inclination is that it's Hermeticism. So, having said all of that, we're going to go back into and dive back into, for my own sake, having a better understanding and once again, refreshing myself on, the basic Hermetic principles, go deeper into Hermeticism to better understand everything. Well, I'll never be able to understand everything, but have a greater understanding of Hermeticism and have a deeper knowledge and have a more intimate knowledge of all the things and the implications that it truly means, and potentially be able to apply that as a foundation when it comes to better understanding paranormal experiences and or phenomena that is happening, and using it as a framework to be able to organize, make connections, which is a big thing. I wrote it down here as I was going through footage. I was editing late last night here at the watering hole, and there's there was a very specific message from the gateway device. Let me find it. It'll be in episode 4, and you'll hear it when I release those episodes. But there is a sequence in a room called the dry good storage room at Post Town Elementary in the basement, and there's a very specific message from the gateway device that says connect them all. Connect them all. And to me, that's very clear because the point, the purpose, this is where it gets really exciting for me. And I just had a lightning bolt of excitement shoot down my body into my root chakra. Don't take that the wrong way. The purpose of the investigation is to try to show the connectivity of all paranormal phenomena. Holy shit, right? So, and we're getting from the gateway device, connect them all. Basically, it's an affirmation of the mission statement of the entire fucking investigation. Connect them all, connect them all, connect these paranormal phenomena, which is what we were trying to do with a variation of the CE5, doing it in a haunted school, and then also being drawn outside to potentially where there's cryptids and other. Uh, so, I mean, it gets very exciting. Connect them all. You'll see that in episode 4. That's just a little teaser, but it's this is the kind of stuff that gets me really juiced up and gets me really excited and provides meaning, uh, provides meaning for me in life. And I think it's fair to say that I hope that's not too loud. My elbow just hit the table. It hurt a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. Diner Dan wants to go to Denny's right now. He's in my ear right now talking. He's over here just kind of listing off all of the menu items. And I don't need that right now, Diner Dan. I know. We're all hungry. Everybody eats, buddy. We're gonna get there. Diner Dan just keeps talking about all the different ways. Did I know all the different ways you can prepare eggs? Yes. I'm 46. I've prepared eggs in many different ways myself. I know you can get them Benedict. I know there's different ways to get them Benedict over at Denny's. Diner Dan is on one in my ear. Thank God you can't hear him. Scrambled, we can get them Benedict, we can go over easy over. I know. I've never ordered the moons over my hammy. Can you believe it? I'm not a big fan of ham. And thankfully, I think thankfully, uh, I try to stay away from pig most of the time because they're so cute and smart. Pigs are. So, the point, talking about pigs being cute and smart. This is a paranormal podcast, is it? Is it? Oh my God. See, this book, I highly recommend this book, The Serious Mystery, Robert K.G. Temple. Um, it is dense. It's dense as all dense can get. I will say that. Um, but when you start getting into the details of, the solar system and the star system and the connection between astronomy and astrology, and specifically between the connections that seemingly should not have been there between, like, the Sumerians and the Egyptians, how they seemingly have a common origin, potentially. Temple talks about this, he writes about this, is that, to the best of our knowledge, there's a certain period of time where these two great civilizations made contact, and you start seeing overlap in culture and religion and gods, etc., things like this, right? There's an exchange of information happening when any two cultures come in contact with one another. What is fascinating is, before we believe, or the people who have, devoted lifetimes to studying these things, before the moment when it is believed that these two cultures came in contact with one another, there are striking similarities when it comes to the belief systems and the specifically in relationship to astrology and astronomy, and kind of the stories and the meanings that go associated with such things. And people can poo poo on astrology all day long, and they do. They do. People don't miss an opportunity to take a big steamer on astrology. But joke's on them, because astrology is the earliest belief system that our human ancestors have, that, to the best of our knowledge, that we had to make meaning and try to make sense of the world around us. There's that word again. I didn't mean to talk about meaning today. I didn't anticipate that this was going to be the theme or one of the subjects of this third year bonus. This is the beauty about third year bonuses. This is why I love doing them, um, because they're pretty much just turn on the mic. I know I always have ideas and some things I want to get to, and half, most of the time, I'll finish recording. I'll be like, holy, oh, totally forgot to get into a thing. Multiple things I wanted to talk about specifically, but I'm sure that'll happen again here. But the point is, we don't know what we're going to stumble upon. We don't know what we're going to discover. And these are just conversations, and, conversations between you and I. And you might not be here in the room with me, and I might not be listening to you talk because you're not here. Um, but this is a conversation, and I always welcome feedback. So yeah, I mean, you can shoot me emails. You can find me on social media at Rising. Please give a follow at Rising on social media, so I can keep you up to date on all the comings and goings and the tour dates and things like that. I'll be in Indianapolis on Friday night at the Middle Ground Festival. I'm very excited about that. And then I'll be in Mount Shasta coming up very soon. Then I'll be in Eureka, California in June. I'll be in Mason City, Illinois in June. I'll be in Cincinnati in July, July 6th through 9th. I'll be celebrating my birthday on stage at Go Bananas. And then I'll be in Louisville, Kentucky, going back to Planet of the Tapes, I'll be at the Charlotte Comedy Festival in September. I'll be back in Asheville come September. There's lots of tour dates happening. I don't know. I want to buy a house somewhere. I want to buy like a $50,000 house and fix it up. I was really on one about buying a house in like Florence, Alabama, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then everything changed. And then maybe I'll do that. I'm feeling, I've got an apartment, I've got an office space, and now I'm like, I gotta get out. I gotta move somewhere. I gotta live in the woods and figure it all out, man. I gotta live in the woods and I gotta figure it all out. Homestead Harry is popping it. There seems to be a theme whenever I come up with a character. It's Diner Dan and Homestead Harry. Yeah, I mean, but there's no diners out there, man. You kind of sound like they kind of sound like what was our buddy's name? Oh, hey man, there's no diners out there, man. Um, I fucking forget that guy's name. I don't know. It's been too long. Somebody listening probably remembers his name. What is it? Teddy? Ted? Teddy? Ted's wrong. Never done a character named Ted in my entire life. I've never once been like, oh, his name's Ted. Never. Never have, never will. I mean, I love Ted Lasso, but never have, never will. Just not a Ted guy. More of a Theodore. I would never go by Ted if I was Theodore. Phew, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. If I was a Theodore and there are all these Teds running around, I would be bothered by that. I would be upset. Like, Theodore is such a good name, and you're going by Ted when you could be called Theodore? What is wrong? Or even Theo? Why would you be Ted? Is Ted short for Theodore? I don't even know anymore, and it doesn't even matter. The point is, connect them all. And we're going to do our best. We're going to go to Mount Shasta soon. We're going to see if we can't get some more information for you. And we're going to see if we can do the dream downloads. I'm trying to do the dream downloads. Uh, Someone's reached out to me about that. I'm all about other people trying to do dream downloads. I'm trying to do dream downloads to try to figure out better ways and more specific ways to communicate with paranormal phenomena, other intelligence, other entities. Uh, Almost like I want to get blueprints, right? I don't want to like download my own Frank's box blueprints, or I don't want to like be given blueprints to a brand new Integratron building or something like that. But looking for information, trying to glean some more information here about a better way and more effective ways to continue the conversation during these paranormal investigations. So we're trying to do dream downloads, setting intentions before sleep. I've been doing a lot of gratefulness stuff. Like, I've been very grateful for my feet lately. I don't know if you're grateful for your feet, but my feet have been killing it for 46 years. They've been doing a great job, and I've been thanking my feet out loud a lot lately. And maybe that's a sign of just getting older and being more appreciative, but my feet have just been really there for me this whole time. And I appreciate them. I appreciate what they've done for me up to this point in my life. And I look forward to having them around, hopefully, for the rest of my life that I can remember. So thank your feet today. Um, if you haven't in a while. But thanks for listening. It's been an hour. I can't believe it's been an hour. I mean, time flies in the watering hole in the astral plane over here. I mean, this place is. I'm really enjoying the office space. I probably won't buy a house in Florence, Alabama, even though I'm starting to think about it again. And there's a river right there. It's just beautiful. I got a couple friends down there. Anyway, I was on Zillow until 4 in the morning. No big deal. Don't have any money. In fact, I have what they would call negative, quite a bit of negative money. But we'll see what happens. The grid's going to collapse and all credit card debt will be wiped away, as will college loans. Um, no thanks to Biden. Nonetheless, not to get political, but hey, am I right? Thanks a lot, Biden. I went to college because Biden told me to. Anyway, I got my Super 7. Shout out to my buddy AJ Finney. Whenever I wear a Super 7 stone, I think of my buddy AJ Finney, very funny comedian. I love you. I hope you love yourself. Take care of yourself. Thank your feet. or thank your hands, or whatever body part you're most thankful for. Thank it, your butt. Maybe you sit a lot and it's comfortable when you sit. Thank your butt for that. You know what I mean? God, give your tush some love. You know what I mean? Your sweet, sweet tush. So, yeah, that's it. RyanSingerComedy.com. That's got everything you need to know. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month gets you uh, probably early releases of The Bridge, plus other things, plus ad-free episodes. So I hope to see you at a live show, Indianapolis, this Friday, and then more dates on the books. And can't wait to share with you what happens in Mount Shasta very soon. I'll keep you posted on when that trip is happening and about everything that happened on that trip. So in the meantime, I hope to see you at a live show. And if not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.